DearPiggy Python tutorial. In this video, we are going to be working with one subject only, so this is going to be pretty quick. We are going to be working on casting, and right now we're just going to get into the basics of casting, but casting can get pretty complex and pretty important. So casting is directly related to data types. So in our first class, when we learned about data types, this is going to come hand in hand with data types. So we'll be working on integers, floats, and strings just for this quick little video, but there's so many other ways that you can work with casting. Let's go to a new tab, go to repl.it, Replit, our in-browser IDE, click the blue Start Coding button in the right-hand corner or in the center, choose Python, and create your REPL. So over here, if we take a look at our pictures on this side, we have different variables that are strings, that are integers, that are floats. So how we're going to do that is we're going to create our var1, we're going to do var2, we're also going to do var3. Now we're going to say var1 is going to be equal to, let's give it a string. So hi, actually let's not do the quotation, let's not do the exclamation mark. Variable 2 is going to be an integer, and that's going to be, let's just say 9. And then variable 3 is going to be a float, and we can say 3.5. Now the difference between floats and integers, I just want to remind you, is that integers are whole numbers. They cannot be decimals. And then floats are including whole numbers, and they're also including integer fractions and decimals and that sort of thing. So now we have three variables with three different data types, and this is a string, this is an integer, this is a float. Now if we take a look at our pictures now, we can change all of these to either strings or floats or ints, but we have to be really careful here. If we change variable 1 to a string, it's going to get very, very confused, right? So we can just try that. We can change everything to strings as of now. So we can say, let's do it over here, to strings. We're going to say one, no, not one. One is going to be str and then hi. Now what this means is str with the parentheses around it is just basically casting. We're saying change whatever is in the following parentheses to a string. We're going to say 2 is going to be str because we're casting. We're going to say 9. And then last 3 is going to be str 3.5. Now, I really want to emphasize this str means that you're casting whatever is inside of these parentheses, whether it's high, 9, or 3.5, you're going to change it into a string. So now if I print out 1, 2, and I print out 3, I can run my program, and then I get high, 9, and 3.5. And now while this might not look any different at all to you, I cannot stress enough how important it is, because we need to make sure that data types are not something that's going on in our brain, remember. We understand data types clearly because we are the people writing the code. But when we go and run our program is getting confused on how we need to use the data type that we give it. So by casting, we are basically saying, I want to change this string 9 into this integer 9 into a string. I'm going to change this float into a string. So basically in this case, we are going to be changing these things to strings. So as you can see, there's not going to be that big of a difference here, but we know in the program now, it's a different state of mind. We can also, if we really wanted to, we can also print the type of 1, 2, and 3, because that would really show us what data type it is. So by using the type function, we can see the data type of all of these. And now we should probably get string for all of them, right? Because strings, we told it to change it to a string over here. And I'm missing a few parentheses. Don't get your parentheses mixed up, guys. Type 2. Why do I have an invalid syntax here? Let's try it again. Oh, it's because my number 1 was affected. There we go. 2. Alrighty, so now when I run my program, I get class is string for every single one of them. Now, does this make sense for everyone? When we just printed out 1, 2, and 3, so we can say print 1 as well as the type, print 2 as well as the type, print 3 as well as the type, we saw that we get high 9, 3.5, and when we just run it, we don't see any difference from what they usually are. But when we ask for the data type, we get strings for all of them. And that's really important because it proves that our casting was successful. So let's do the same thing for our int. And now int is going to be very different because whether it's an int or a float or a string, everything can be casted to a string. But for integers and floats, it is not the case because a string, no matter how you do it, is not going to turn into an integer, right? But we can try it. So we can say 4 is equal to, we can say hello. 5 is equal to, we will just give it another integer. 6 is going to be equal to, let's give it a float. Now, nope, 8.9. So now how we cast it to an integer is we would do int and then we would put parentheses around it. So we're saying this is going to be an integer. Now it's not going to work because we know that hello in no way can be turned into an integer. But that's fine with us. I just want to let you guys see a little bit what we're doing here. So we have our things. Now we're going to say print 4 as well as the type, the data type of 4. We're going to print out 5 as well as the data type of 5. I always type 5 wrong. That's really weird. And then we're going to say print out 6 as well as the data type of 6. Now when I run this, it is going to give me, let's comment this out. It should give me, what should it give me, guys? It'll either just kindly or nicely tell me that this is incorrect because hello and this float cannot be an integer, or it's just going to tell me, hey, Sunny, you're doing it wrong. So as we can see, okay, see, it gave me a very ugly looking red error. And it said invalid literal for int with base 10 hello. So as we can see here, the first thing that it reads is this string. Right, and so when it first reads this, it automatically sees an error, so it doesn't even run lines 20 or 21 because line 19 has a problem in it. And so it says, hello, Sunny, you dummy, what are you doing? Hello is not an integer, it's a string, which proves that integers are not that flexible when you want to cast them. So last example we're going to be working on is we're going to be working on changing everything to floats. And so now I'm not even going to give you an integer as an example because as we know, no matter how we manipulate a string, it's not going to turn into a float. It's not going to turn into any sort of integer or a float. It's just not going to happen. So we'll just say 7 is going to be, we'll give it an integer this time. And then 8 is going to be a float. So now we could say print out 7 as well as the type of 7, and I forgot to cast it, but we will do that in a second. Print out 8 as well as the data type of 8, and I need to get my parentheses straight. And so now I need to cast it. Remember, the most important part is casting. You have to emphasize that this is going to be a float. Now this can be very important. If any of you guys have ever made a calculator, then you know that casting and telling your variable what data type it needs to turn into is extremely important. So let's run our code here and we get an error. And why did we get an error? Let's take a look here. I'm going to get rid of all the code above here and then let's try to run it again. And then here we go. We see 9 is no longer 9, it's now 9.0 because we have changed it into a float. Remember, floats are like decimals, and 9 is the same thing as 9.0. And as class float, 4.5 was already a float in the first place, so its class remains the same. So in this video, we learned about Python casting. We learned about int, float, and string, and in the parentheses, you can put whatever value. All data types can be converted into a string, but it's not the same way for integers and floats. So one last quick reminder here, over here, it says y is equal to int 2.8. We can change a float to an integer, but if we do, it will always round down. So it doesn't matter if you're giving it a float of 2.2 or 2.8 or 2.9 or 2.999995. It'll all round down to 2. So that's just a little reminder to think about. That was our casting video for today. We have 2 more, so see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.